What's good, y'all? It's Kid Kinsey, and today we talking about the underrated genius of Monkey D. Luffy. While Luffy is very goofy, I think people often miss out on how sharp he is on picking up on things and how his silly nature actually aids him with coming up with creative strategies and unique techniques. Unlike Sasuke, where most of his plans are some giant grand multi-step plans to GG his opponent, Naruto and Luffy shine best when they're going off script and adapting to whatever situation they're currently in. However, like I said in the previous videos, there is technically no right way to do this, and all these characters are geniuses in their own right. But enough of the intro. Coming in at number 5, we have Luffy versus Foxy. I know, but hear me out. I'm not about to sit here and act like this fight is an intellectual masterclass, but Luffy did showcase the ability to adapt on the fly and switch fighting styles on the fly, as well as use a neat trick to turn his opponent's power against him. In the right corner, we have Luffy and his hype man Usopp. In this bout, Luffy is sporting an afro because his trusted coach said it not only makes you stronger, but changes how you talk. And in the left corner, we have Foxy. The fight begins with Luffy throwing out his gum pistol, but Foxy dodges it and hits his arm with the slow beam, which makes you slower, obviously. But not only does it slow you down, whatever damage you take within the next few seconds, it doesn't happen instantly, but it builds up and then hits you all at once. Luffy notes that he has to be careful with his stretching, which already puts him at a disadvantage because that's his main way of fighting. So, the fight goes on and Luffy chases Foxy down through the bottom of the ship, both engaging in their own silly shenanigans. But things get serious once they reach the bottom room, where Foxy is in a giant mech suit, and also in the room is a giant mirror at the back of it. Foxy uses his slow beam and it misses, so Luffy is confused about where he was aiming. However, it reflects off the mirror since they're photons, and while Luffy is focused on dodging the photons from the back, Foxy is able to land a punch on him with his giant mech suit. The punches are coated in fire, so they're able to hurt Luffy. The onslaught continues as Foxy holds up his own personal mirror to reflect the photons even more, and he says you will eventually be crushed between the gorilla and the mirror. But that gives Luffy an idea. And this, my friends, is where Foxy messed up. Because if you saw the Sasuke video, then you know, self-snitching will lead to your downfall. All Foxy had to do was shut up and keep fighting, and he might have won. Stop snitching. So Luffy's idea was to turn around and break the mirror. This catches Foxy off guard and Luffy is able to land a clean pistol. The crowd is anticipating who the winner of the fight is, even commenting that the fight is taking longer than usual because Foxy is fighting somebody with an afro. But then there's a giant explosion, and out the smoke, we see what appears to be Foxy standing victorious. However, Luffy got that dog in him, so he gets up and continues the fight. Foxy restrains him and hits him with another onslaught of punches, but Luffy gets up again. After getting knocked down and getting up again, the crowd is basically on Luffy's side at this point. Even the announcer is cheering for him, and this gets Foxy tight, so he begins to go on the offensive. He uses his slow beams as a sword to knock Luffy down, and then he fires a cannonball, but he slows that down so he can grab it and hit Luffy with it at close range. He going for the kill right now, he really wildin'. So Foxy flies in, punches Luffy in the face to knock him down, then he throws the cannonball at him and it explodes. However, when the smoke clears, Luffy is up again, and if you watch the anime you can hear it in the background. Let's go Cena, Cena sucks. While Luffy is standing up, we see a clank sound effect. Luffy looks down, says oh, and then he looks up and says my win. The two charge at each other and start exchanging fast-paced punches. Foxy uses his slow beam and Luffy falls to the floor, but then the announcer notes how Luffy is able to move but Foxy isn't, and then a shard of a mirror falls out of Luffy's hand. Back when the deck was destroyed, a piece of the mirror got stuck in Luffy's afro, and it didn't fall out until Foxy hit him with the cannonball. So that clank sound effect earlier that Luffy noticed, that was actually the glass that fell out of his hair. That's why he said his win. As soon as he noticed that, he knew what he had to do to get the W. So while Foxy is unable to move, Luffy punches him in the face, and then after 10 seconds goes by, he goes flying. And the winner is Monkey D. Luffy. Some people will say it's lucky that the shard of glass just happened to be in his hair and fall out. I say it's great situational awareness, because mid-battle he was able to say, oh snap, I can use that to my advantage, and that's exactly what he did. And at number 4, we have Luffy and company's plan to take down Big Mom. Now, while I know multiple people were involved in the plan, Luffy was the main distraction and he was the one to actually show her the picture, so he gets the team MVP. The issue at hand was, Big Mom's body is literally built different. Normal bullets and guns have no effect on her. However, BG knows the secret and knows that there's a specific window when she's vulnerable. So the plan they start discussing is they would shoot 2 poisonous rockets during the 5-second interval when her body is weak. BG goes on to explain that at every tea party, they set a picture of Mother Caramel across from Big Mom, and one time, a waiter accidentally dropped it, and this caused Big Mom to scream loud, and people were getting knocked out because this wasn't a normal scream. It was infused with Conqueror's Haki, and when Big Mom fell to her knees while crying, she scraped her knee, proving that she's indeed not invulnerable. So, it's during this screaming period when they will shoot the rockets at her, and while doing so, they have to wear these special noise-canceling earbuds. BG goes on to explain that there's a 3-second interval between breaking the picture and when Big Mom actually screams, and that during this time, they have to survive being surrounded by the Big Mom pirates. BG tells Luffy that he's bait for the plan, and Luffy is excited because he thought of a funny way to make his appearance. The signal for the plan to be set in motion will be a gunshot at the wedding. After they complete the mission, Caesar will come in carrying a mirror so they can escape back into the mirror dimension. The plan is all laid out. Now all they have to do is execute. BG arrives at the party and instantly notices Katakuri and knows that this will be an issue because he can see the future and that will throw everything off. Caesar brings out the mirror and things are getting ready to start. The tea party is now underway and BG credits Sanji for putting on an act of really being excited to marry Pudding. However, little does he know, this isn't an act. Sanji was just real life simping just a few minutes ago. Sanji and Pudding about to officially get married, while Luffy and company are getting ready to come out the cake. Katakuri looks into the future and sees Pudding fall to the floor, so he gets up and starts walking towards them. However, Pudding begins to lift her veil. She shows Sanji her third eye, expecting him to think it's hideous. However, he thinks it's beautiful, and now this throws everything off. She begins crying because all her life she was bullied for her third eye, and Sanji was the first person to compliment it. You hear that, fellas? Sometimes being a nice guy does pay off. However, since the Big Mom pirates had a plan to capture the Vinsmokes, Pudding falling to the floor just threw everything off. Like now the gunshot timing is off, and now chaos is about to ensue. Big Mom tells the priest to be the one to shoot Sanji. However, Katakuri, being able to see the future, sees that Sanji will just dodge that. So he shoots a jelly bean. However, Sanji dodges that, and then the Straw Hats thinks that's the signal to jump out the cake. Katakuri tells Big Mom that what's about to happen, even he can't control, and this is when a bunch of Luffys burst out of Big Mom's wedding cake. Luffy had came up with the idea to put a mirror inside the wedding cake and use Brulee's power to make copies of people by using animals that he caught so that during the ceremony, they could burst out the cake to distract the Big Mom pirates. So with the wedding cake destroyed, Big Mom enters a confused and dazed state. However, after she takes the souls of some of her minions, she comes back to her senses and asks, which one of the many copies is Monkey D. Luffy? BG says there's no way Luffy would tell her, but he does. And then he goes for the picture of Mother Caramel. BG tells Vito and Gotti to get ready. However, Katakuri stops Luffy in his tracks. Big Mom asks Katakuri why he interfered, and he tells her that they were going after the picture. Jinbe helps Luffy get free from Katakuri's attack, and then they approach Big Mom. But in the midst of all the commotion, we see somebody break the Mother Caramel picture with a hammer. He continues to smash it into pieces, and when Big Mom notices, BG notes how they have 3 seconds until her scream. The person who broke the picture turns out to be Brook, and Big Mom right now is so confused that she doesn't know what to be mad at first, which honestly sounds like some Rochelle over Everybody Hates Chris stuff. Like, how are you so mad that you don't know what to be mad at? That's crazy. But BG tells Luffy to show Big Mom the smash picture again to really break her mind. However, Katakuri is rushing towards them, but BG notices a pale look on his face, meaning that the future that he just saw isn't good. BG tells everyone to put the headphones on, and Luffy prepares to show Big Mom the picture. As Luffy tries to show her the picture, Katakuri tries to stop him, but Pedro, Jinbe, and BG all protect him. Katakuri is able to avoid them and pin Luffy down. However, Luffy stretches out like he's reaching for the goal line like this is Space Jam, and he shows Big Mom the picture. Big Mom, seeing the picture up close, finally causes her to snap and unleash the Conqueror's Hockey Scream. She's currently weakened, so BG and company prepare to shoot her with the rockets. They fire them off. However, due to her screams, they all explode before they get there. The plan has failed. Caesar flies in to try to save them by having them jump into the mirror, but due to the wind pressure from her screams, the mirror breaks. They are now stuck on the roof with no way to escape. Now, I know the plan ultimately failed in the end and there were multiple people involved, but Luffy did all he could to try to make the plan succeed. The saying, everybody has a plan so they get punched in the mouth, applies perfectly here. Because the plan they had to take down Big Mom was messed up from the start due to Pudding's reaction to Sanji. This wasn't in the plans at all, so they had to scramble in an attempt to make the plan succeed. So the fact that Luffy was still able to show Big Mom the picture, despite all the chaos, shows his ability to adapt to situations on the fly. In the world of sports, we call this going off script. It's like basketball. Yeah, your coach can draw up a play, but if the defense shuts it down and the shot clock is winding down, do you have what it takes to call an ISO and make something happen? If you lose one of your Pokemon to a critical hit, are you able to remain calm and assess the situation and see what you have to do to get a W from that point? Similar to what I showed with Naruto, being able to adapt on the fly and do improv is indeed part of battle IQ, and that's why this is number 4 for Luffy. And at number 3, we got Luffy versus Cracker. This fight, I would say, showcased Luffy's unorthodox style and his willingness to just try anything if he thinks it'll help him in combat. But before I get to the analysis, can I just take a moment to call out Luffy? Bro, what do you mean you don't know how to fight any other way than serious? You can't fool me. I'm familiar with your game. But versus Cracker, Luffy had a major issue, and that was he simply couldn't hurt him. His strongest Gear 3rd attacks literally had no effect. Elephant Gun, which is one of his strongest pre-Gear 4th moves, didn't even make Cracker budge. Then, when Cracker goes on the offensive, he's able to easily damage Luffy with his pretzel roll and knocks him across the forest. The next exchange begins with Luffy attempting to use Hulk Gatling, but this also has no effect, and he's coming to the realization that Cracker's armament hockey is just way too hard at this point. After Cracker pins him down and starts talking greasy about Sanji, Luffy uses Gear 4th and now he's strong enough to damage Cracker. So he blows him back with a con gun and then charges in for another attack, but then Cracker uses pretzel roll in an attempt to counter him. However, Luffy wins this exchange due to the AP boost that Gear 4 provides, and he blows Cracker back. Luffy's punch breaks Cracker's body in two, and his arm continues to extend, but we see his silhouette peeking out of the bottom half of the body. It stands up and begins to try to cut Luffy's arm off. He actually cuts a bit into his arm before Luffy quickly retracts his hand and then asks, "Who are you?" Cracker explains that what Luffy just did was break his armor, and that he can mass produce the Biscuit Soldiers, that Luffy damn near had to exhaust his entire arsenal to get through. Now Luffy was really in trouble, because you have to remember, at this point, Gear 4 still had a cooldown. It wasn't something he could just spam, but he needed to go into Gear 4 to do any damage to a Biscuit Soldier. So how in the world was he going to take down several Biscuit Soldiers at once if he just had to go all out to defeat one? Luffy uses a Kong organ to try to take down many of them. However, this gives the real Cracker an opening to try to land a headshot on him, which almost takes Luffy out, but the fight cuts away, and that's the end of the first part of their fight. All I can say right now is, Luffy, my boy, I know exactly how you feel. For those of y'all who played Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, think back to when you battled Lance. Now, think about how you felt when you put so much effort into defeating his Dragonite just to see the message that Lance is about to send in Dragonite. You probably felt like you were losing your mind. Like, bro, I just beat a Dragonite. What you mean he's sending out another Dragonite? And then they had the nerve to troll us because Lance actually had 3 of them things. Or you playing a Soulsborne game and you damn near used all your resources to take down a difficult boss just for them to have another phase. It's not like you could save resources in the first phase because you need to use those resources to even get to the second phase. That's the issue Luffy was currently facing. There's a Sanji flashback, but when the fight cuts back to Luffy vs. Cracker, it says it's been 11 hours since the fight began. Luffy says he can't eat anymore, and Cracker's tight because all Luffy's been doing for the past few hours is eating and running. We see that Luffy is huge, and Cracker tells him to eat till he explodes. Cracker says if it weren't for Nami's rain making his hard biscuits soft, then they wouldn't have become chewy, and it's implied that Luffy has been eating them all night. Now I'll admit, I'm an anime guy, so I thought that the scenes of Nami making them wet and Luffy eating some of them were in the manga, since it's pretty important to take down Cracker, but we move. Cracker makes more biscuit soldiers and charges at Luffy, but he's almost full, but once Nami wets them with Weather Egg and Rain Spark, he begins to eat more of them. When the fight cuts back, Luffy is even bigger and says once again that he can't eat anymore. Cracker says that he's at his limit and charges, and this is when Luffy uses Muscle Balloon, aka Gear 4th, but this time he doesn't use Bound Man, instead he uses Tank Man and says this is the stuff version, implying it's a normal version of Tank Man. This form is covered in armament haki, more than Bound Man, since Luffy is simply bigger than before, so when Cracker attacks him it does no damage, and he begins to get sucked into Luffy's giant stomach. He tells Nami not to make the remaining biscuit soldiers hard, and then he uses Gum Gum Cannonball to send Cracker flying through his biscuit soldiers and across the island to get the W. This fight, I would say, perfectly showcased Luffy's ability to make the best out of a bad situation. After eating all those biscuits, he said he was full to the point where he could barely move. Now, if those was the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits, then Luffy, eat till you die, cause those biscuits is elite. But credit to Luffy for knowing what form was perfect for that specific situation. He knew going Bound Man was essentially useless, because Cracker would just keep on creating more biscuits, so he opted to use Tank Man because sometimes the best offense is a great defense. Each one of the Gear 4 forms specializes in something, Bound Man being the most balanced. However, he knew that alone wasn't going to get the W, so he had to switch tactics. For those of y'all who saw my Naruto's Top 5 Big Brain Plays video, you remember that Naruto did something similar versus the Third Raikage, because he opted to go Sage Mode, which has better precognition, rather than go KCM, which is his overall stronger form. He knew what he needed for that specific situation to get the W. And that's what Luffy did with going Tank Man over Bound Man. So I'll try to wrap this section up like this. Luffy cannot hurt Cracker unless he's in Gear 4th, but Gear 4th takes a toll on his body and it's not something he can spam. He has Tank Man in his back pocket, however, it's a one-trick pony, so he has to be absolutely sure of when to use it. This will be like if you're in a Pokemon battle and you're facing a stall type Pokemon. The only one of your moves that does any significant damage has recoil, so obviously that's not something that you can spam. Now, you have a Pokemon with Choice Bannered Explosion on your team, but you have to be 100% sure of when to use it, or, you're gonna lose. That's basically what Luffy did to take Cracker down. And at number 2, we got Luffy vs Enel. I've said it earlier, but you're really about to see why his improv skills and goofiness make him a combat genius. While Luffy did hold the elemental advantage in this matchup due to being rubber, which countered Enel's lightning attacks, there was still the issue that Luffy couldn't land a clean hit on him because Enel has Observation Haki, or as he calls it, Mantra. Observation Haki gives a bunch of abilities, but the ones that Enel uses the most are the precog / mind reading aspects of it, which allows him to know what attacks you're going for. Even his priests were calling out Sanji and Luffy's combo attacks. It also gives you enhanced senses, which allows him to sense others near him as well as hear conversation miles away, which is only amplified by his duffel fruit. So it's safe to say, due to his Kenboshoku Haki, landing a clean hit on Enel was a difficult task. So the opening scene goes exactly how you think it would if you're fighting somebody who not only knows all your moves, but is fast enough to dodge them. Because one way to get around Observation Haki is just to be a lot faster than your opponent or use huge AoE moves. However, at this point, Luffy did not have either of those advantages. Enel adapts to not being able to hurt Luffy with electricity by turning his weapon into a bladed one, and then when he asks Luffy if sharp objects are his weakness, like the goofball he is, Luffy said, "Yeah man, it's my weakness." He gets prepared to use Gatling, but Enel quickly closes the distance and burns Luffy, because while he is immune to electricity, the heat from Enel's blade can still hurt Luffy. Shortly after this, Luffy is finally able to land a hit by using Battle Axe, and then he tries to follow it up with Gatling, but Enel's able to easily catch his fist. Luffy makes another comment about how he has to find a way to get around Enel being able to read his moves, and that's when he thinks of one of his most creative plans ever. Luffy's plan to counter Enel's ability to read his mind is to literally not think, and this works. With Gum Gum's space out, Luffy began to dodge attacks with his instincts instead of thinking about how he plans to dodge. Therefore, Enel cannot read his patterns, but this comes with a backdraw. Since Luffy was unable to think, he also couldn't attack. However, he comes up with another plan to get around Enel's mantra. He uses Gum Gum Octopus fireworks and starts attacking the ship. Enel and Nami are confused at first, but alas, the attacks finally land and Luffy begins to put the beat down on Enel with bazooka, followed up by rifle, and Enel is slumped. The reason Enel wasn't able to predict the attacks from Octopus was because Luffy himself was unaware of where the attacks will ricochet. Therefore, reading his mind will be useless because, he's button mashing. After realizing that Luffy is more of a problem than he initially thought, Enel decides to get rid of him by attaching a gold ball to his arm and kick him off the ship, and that marks the end of their first round. The second round begins when Nami assists Luffy with getting back up to Enel, who's on the Arc Maxim. Luffy with the Golden Bell jumps right into the heart of the thundercloud and uses Gum Gum fireworks, and this begins to cause the giant cloud to start having an electrical discharge. Now, I know this is supposed to be a video highlighting Luffy's battle IQ, but I'm sorry, I'm not jacking that. I'm not jacking that. He knew the science behind that. I think he was trying to punch the cloud away, but if he did know the gold would interfere with the electricity, then shit. Luffy, you are now officially a weatherman. Luffy and Sasuke can now cover the weather segments at Shonen HQ. So after dispelling the giant cloud of storms and exchanging a few blows with Enel, Luffy knocks him out with the golden rifle. Now if you think Luffy purposely swung the gold around him to interfere with the electricity, all props to him. But let's really talk about how he got around an opponent with the capability of sensing his every move. Sometimes you just gotta do things that aren't meta and, to be honest, aren't good ideas, simply because your opponent won't see it coming. If you playing Dragon Ball Fighters and you feel like your opponent is always one step ahead of you, I promise you, just do a raw level 3 and wake up. I guarantee he won't see it coming. A little bit of button mashing never hurts, especially if your opponent is only prepared for what's optimal and efficient. So doing something stupid may actually work because no sane person would try it. And at number 1, we got Luffy vs Crocodile. I think this is clearly his best display of battle IQ. His improv, attention to detail, even his pre-battle planning were all on full display. So the battle starts with Luffy throwing pistol. Crocodile dodges it and closes the distance and tries to take out Luffy with his hook. Luffy dodges that and uses stamp, but it goes right through Crocodile. He then follows that up with Gatling and then Bazooka, but both have no effect. He then uses Axe, and when the dust clears, there's no signs of Crocodile anywhere. But we start to see the sand reform, and then Crocodile comes back to life, and he tells Luffy that he's wasting his time. But in the middle of him talking, Luffy just punches his mouth off and asks, "Oh, so you were trying to say something?" Like, as a joke. And now Crocodile is tight. Luffy is starting to realize that he can't hit Crocodile, and Croc launches a desert spotter, and it splits the desert in half. Luffy is able to dodge it at the last second, but then after that, Crocodile makes a pit of quicksand in an attempt to bury Luffy alive. Luffy can't run out the sand, but this is when his quick thinking and improv show itself. He uses Bazooka on the ground to propel himself upward. He then uses Gum Gum Finger Nut to try to ensnare Crocodile, but this quickly backfires, because Crocodile swings at Luffy's arm with sand and it dries up, because Crocodile is able to absorb the moisture in your body and make you shrivel up like a mummy. That's hacks. Luffy begins to panic, but then he remembers he has a water bottle, so he runs to it, drinks some, and then it totally restores his arm. Luffy charges at Crocodile again, and this time, he uses his super secret strongest move. Now, honestly, I think Oda might bring back this move to defeat Blackbird or Akainu. You thought I was feeling you? Gum Gum Munch, and then Luffy eats the top half of Crocodile. Crocodile clearly wasn't a baddie back when he was a female, and he's not a fan of Ice Spice because this gets him really, really, really mad. So he sends a sandstorm towards Yuba. Luffy runs down on Crocodile like, "Yo bro, what is you doing?" So he grabs him and tells him to stop it. But then the next thing we see is a bloody hook. Crocodile has impaled Luffy. Croc then begins talking even more smack, but then he notices that where he stabbed through, it was the water bottle that Luffy drunk out of, and now his arm was wet. Luffy then grabs his arm, and Crocodile is shocked that Luffy's still alive, so he throws him off the hook, and that's the end of the first round of their fight. Round 2 begins with Luffy arriving at the palace in Alabasta with what appears to be a giant barrel on his back. He charges at Crocodile and Croc is all like, yo bro, don't you remember what happened last time? You can't hit me. And then he turns into sand. Luffy swings at him and the haymaker connects. He then extends both arms and grabs onto Crocodile, and in Croc's head he says, impossible. Did that kid? Now, we don't know if he's talking about did he figure out water is my weakness, or if you think Oda is Batman, Crocodile could be saying did he learn armament hockey. But I'll leave that up to you to decide. But Luffy uses Gum Gum Buzzsaw to knock Crocodile over, and this is when he explains that he figured out that he can touch Crocodile back when his arm got wet from the water. That's why Crocodile stole the rain. That analysis by Luffy is the definition of you don't lose, you learn. It's only a failed encounter if you don't learn or gain any experience from it. Crocodile praises Luffy for figuring out that weakness while Luffy was on the brink of death, and that's another reason why this is number 1. It's not just what Luffy figured out, it's the circumstances that he was under while he did it. Luffy uses pistol, but Croc dodges it and grabs his arm. He begins to start draining the moisture out of it, and Luffy's like, oh snap, I forgot about that trick. A lot like Naruto, even when they are showing off their battle genius, they're still silly at their core, because I don't know how you forget about a move that almost sent you to Valhalla. So Luffy drinks water to restore his arm again, and he launches another pistol, except this time he pulls down on his arm and lets go of it, you know, like a rubber band, and this is called shotgun, as a way to prevent Crocodile from grabbing his arm. Shotgun is kind of like a one-handed Gatling. So Crocodile compliments his intelligence again and counters with a desert spotter. Luffy is able to narrowly avoid it again, and he throws out another pistol, except this time this pistol was a feint, because he brought his whole body towards the fist instead of just leaving it out there, and he appears to headbutt Crocodile. He then tries to throw the giant barrel of water onto him, but Crocodile uses Sablus to blow Luffy back and knock the barrel out of his hand. Luffy's able to get it back, and then Crocodile tells him that without the barrel you're useless, and Luffy's like, you know what, you're right. We see the barrel has broken, Crocodile says you're unhinged, and then in the next page, we see the birth of Water Luffy. He somehow sprung a leak. Crocodile can't believe what's going on. This even got a laugh out of Robin. Croc yells at Luffy for playing around with him, and Luffy used Choice Specs Bubble to cover Croc in water, says, I'm always serious, then uses a bazooka and makes Crocodile cough up blood. This blows Croc back into a small building. When Crocodile gets up, he's really super tight. So then he uses Ground Death, and this begins to dry up everything on the roof, even causing the ground to crumble. The ground below Luffy begins to break apart, but as he's falling, he uses Water Pistol, but this time, Crocodile completely nullifies it by dehydrating it, and he mocks Water Luffy, which I'm surprised he even called him that. He begins drying up everything and turning things into sand, and we see that the entire roof is affected. When it cuts back to Luffy, we see him hanging on the side of the building, and Crocodile appears right above him. He grabs Luffy's neck, and Luffy spits water bubbles right at him, but it misses. Crocodile is then able to completely dry him up. After mummifying him, Crocodile drops Luffy to the ground and leaves for the underground lair where the Poneglyph is, and that is the end of round 2 of their fight. However, we get a flashback to the water Luffy just shot at Crocodile and it missed. The water bubbles that he shot up fall out the sky, back down onto Luffy, and then it completely revives him. This is either insane genius or crazy luck, cause boy, what? When people bring up what MC has the most plot armor, people often bring up this very moment, but I don't know bro, Luffy might have planned this. Once again, he's on the brink of death and his battle IQ was on display. Round 3 begins when we find Luffy chasing Crocodile underground. He charges at Crocodile, but Crocodile's cocky because he's like, you don't have any water on you. Luffy throws a kick and it connects. Crocodile's confused on how the hit connected, but Luffy's already charging at him and lands another punch which sends Crocodile flying. This is when Croc noticed the blood dripping off of Luffy's hands, and then he asked him if he's using blood to attack. Luffy co-signs this and says yes, because blood can make sand hard. The fight continues on for a few more pages, and then Luffy takes him out with a Gum Gum Storm. Let's talk about it. That idea to become Water Luffy is deadass one of the most creative ideas I've ever seen an MC come up with. But man, Luffy figuring out Crocodile's weakness was a thing of genius, and it's a testament to the fact that experience is never a bad thing as long as you learn from it. Back when I was a kid playing Pokemon Leaf Green, that Elite Four was tough, bro, and I kept on losing. But whenever I would lose, I would turn the game off because, you know, you play Pokemon, you save right in front of them. But then I finally started to realize something. If I can't beat them at my current strength, me turning the game off and trying again won't accomplish anything. So, let me take a few Pokemon out, gain the experience points, so eventually, when I rematch them, I'm stronger, and I eventually won. Yes, Luffy was defeated soundly in their first fight. He got basically low diffed, but he walked away from the fight with knowledge that aided him in defeating Crocodile, an opponent who was stronger than him, and that's why this is number 1 on the list of Luffy's big brain plays. If you stayed around this long, thank you, because word to mother, I did not expect this video to be 30 minutes long, but like, I feel like I had to discuss most of the fight so you understand why the plan was so good, because the situation he was in. So after doing the Naruto, Sasuke, and Luffy's big brain play videos, I definitely have to say that Luffy's style is way more close to Naruto's than it is to Sasuke. Because outside of Crocodile, he really doesn't have any plans that he goes into the battle with, like, alright, these 15 steps. Once I accomplish these steps, it's over. It's clipped. GG. He's more so like alright, you know what? I think this is about to work. Yeah, I'ma try it. If you stayed around this long, thank you. And I saw all the messages about people asking for like Kakashi, Shikamaru, and Itachi, even like Goku and Vegeta. Trust me, I saw them. I'ma get to them. But thank you for all the support. I love you all. Got to over 1,000 subscribers. The views is doing good. Appreciate it. See you soon.